Lengua 6.1 Pronoun Review. Pronouns are some of the first words we learn in a language. These are words like me, you, it, and theirs. In this Lengua section, we will review the 4 main types of pronouns, as well as 2 more to be aware of. A pronoun is a word that stands in for a noun. For example, the pronoun she can stand in for my sister once the context is clear. Subject pronouns. The first pronouns we encountered were subject pronouns. These tell us who does a verbal action, and they include yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, nosotras, ellos, ellas, and ustedes. Verb conjugation depends on the subject. Subject pronouns usually precede the verb in a statement, but they tend to be placed after the verb in a question. In many parts of Latin America, speakers use vos instead of tú. In much of Spain, speakers use vosotros instead of ustedes. English has a subject pronoun that Spanish does not have, it. Spanish has this word as an indirect and direct object pronoun, but not as a subject pronoun. Instead of using this subject pronoun in Spanish, we simply conjugate the verb appropriately. Es interesante. It is interesting. Because of the richness of verbal forms in Spanish, subject pronouns are often omitted. With the conjugated verb hablamos, for example, the verb form clearly communicates who the subject is, and so the pronoun nosotros is unnecessary. In Spanish, use the subject pronouns only when the context is not clear or in order to add emphasis. ¿De dónde es usted? Dicen que hay fantasmas en esa casa, pero yo nunca he visto nada extraño allí. Algún día me gustaría viajar por Italia y España. ¿A dónde quieres ir tú? Direct object pronouns. We use direct object pronouns to stand in for direct objects. Direct objects are who or what directly receives the verbal action. Another way to think of this is who or what gets verbed. In the sentence, I see the cat, the direct object is the cat. In the sentence, I see it, the word, it is a direct object pronoun. Direct object pronouns stand in for the direct object. They are a replacement. They will refer back to something or someone that has already been mentioned. The direct object pronouns are mi, te, lo, la, nos, los, and las. Also te corresponds to vos and os corresponds to vosotros. No puedo encontrar mis llaves. No recuerdo dónde las dejé. Shitlali habla muy bien el árabe. ¿Por cuántos años lo ha estudiado? Te vi en el parque ayer, pero no pude quedarme para hablar. Tenía que trabajar. Indirect object pronouns. Indirect objects tell us to whom or what something happens. They can also express for whom something occurs. Indirect object pronouns represent indirect objects. In the sentence, I write the letter to her, the indirect object pronoun is her. The letter is a direct object, since it is what gets verbed. Unlike direct object pronouns, indirect object pronouns are not exactly replacements or substitutions. A sentence can have both the indirect object pronoun and the indirect object itself. Once the context is clear enough, the pronoun will suffice. The indirect object pronouns are mi, te, le, se, nos, and les, se. Also, te cor responds to vos, and os corresponds to vosotros. Pablo me dijo que esperaba graduarse el próximo año. Le voy a comprar un regalo a mi papá para su cumpleaños. Espera, todavía estoy explicándote el plan. When using direct and indirect object pronouns together, the indirect object pronoun precedes the direct object pronoun. Also, if both are third-person forms, le, les, plus lo, la, los, les, then the indirect object le or les changes to así. Yo hice las galletas para mi vecina, pero mi hermana se las dio a su novio. Reflexive pronouns. Reflexive pronouns are used with reflexive verbs in all forms and conjugations. They are mi, te, se, nos, and se. Also, ti corresponds to vos, and os corresponds to vosotros. Reflexive pronouns match the subject of reflexive verbs, and so they will correspond with the way the verb is conjugated. If there is a subject pronoun, it will also correspond with the reflexive pronoun. Me levanté a las 6 esta mañana. ¿A qué hora te levantaste tú? Cuando tu hermano y su familia van de vacaciones, ¿se quedan en un hotel? You might have noticed a lot of similarity among the various pronouns. Here is a chart to visualize these similarities more clearly. Demonstrative pronouns. Demonstrative pronouns are the equivalents of this one and those ones. Este, esta, estos, estas, aquel, aquella, aquellos, and aquellas. They match the number and gender of the item they refer to. No me gusta este libro, quiero ese. Possessive pronouns. Possessive pronouns are similar to the one that is yours. They also will match the number and gender of the item they refer to. The possessive pronouns are mío, tuyo, suyo, nuestro, and suyo, along with their feminine and plural forms. ¿Tienes una pluma extra? No sé dónde está la mía. Le dije a mi amiga que puede usar mi carro, pero prefiere el suyo. To review subject pronouns, look over Lengua 1.2. To review indirect object pronouns, look over Lengua 2.7. To review direct object pronouns, look over Lengua 3.3. To review reflexive verbs, look over Lengua 4.1. To review demonstrative pronouns, look over Lengua 4.3. To review direct and indirect object pronouns used together, look over Lengua 1.7.